Welcome to Crypto Rosetta. My name is Savage. Today we're going to be having a look at Ethereum. This is going to be a higher time frame video. There will also be a lower time frame video which you can find up above, so check that link out if that's more what you're interested in. Let's get into the charts and see what's going on. Okay, so the most price history I can find is actually on Kraken, and we have price history from August 2015 here. Now within this structure, we need to be aware that this can be a lot of different things within Elliott-wave. So we're going to have to be open to the idea of a couple of interpretations of this. So now we're going to go over the first one, which I'm looking at, and that's actually looking at this move as a completed move into this high point here. Now, if this is the case, this could potentially either be an A wave or a wave 1. Now, this is looking at this as an extension within a wave 1. So this would mean that this whole move to the upside is wave 1, and then effectively what we're looking for is a wave 2, 3, 4, and 5 here. Now, what we would be typically looking at for a extension within a wave 1 for this fifth wave to actually complete would be between this zone of this 618, which would be here towards this 24,932, and this 786, which would be up here towards this 100,357. Now, this higher target I don't think is realistic, and it depends on how we actually look at this analysis. If we look at it on the linear scale, these targets are actually a lot lower. So the way I'm looking at it within this is effectively we'd have this as 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Now, we could argue that we are within this fourth wave, and it could actually be completed, because if we are looking at this in this way, what if I throw on this time comparison here between this wave 2 and this wave 4, what we can see is that equality was achieved here in August 2022. Now, if this is the case, what this could actually mean is that we could see price actually directly push to the upside here. We would be looking for this fifth wave towards this 14,000 to this 7,286 area. Now, if this is the case and we see this develop as 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, what we could actually see is a direct push up into this zone before looking for an additional fourth and a fifth. Now, the key thing here is that this secondary yellow fourth wave over here cannot actually cross this 1594 area. If we cross this 1594, this would actually invalidate the potential of this being an additional fourth and a fifth here, unless we had something like a diagonal pattern, which would technically still work here. If this was a leading diagonal, we could actually see this wave 4 intersect with this wave 5 before looking for an additional 5-wave move. Now, if it actually only came down here towards the 236, which would actually keep this high in place, what we could actually see is this 3054 be retested before looking for a push up here towards this 19,077 to this 12,313 level. So this is the one way of looking at this. Now, within this count, invalidation of this actually comes by crossing this wave 1 high here. If we cross that wave 1 high, that would invalidate the idea of this as a fourth and a fifth. So we need to just keep an eye on that. That is going to be our invalidation point for this. Now, if we are arguing that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're looking at this potentially as a wave 2, we could also argue this move to the downside here slightly different. We can argue that this is W, X, and Y. Now, the reason that I don't like looking at it like that is that this didn't meet that 0.618. So it's not my favorite way of looking at this correction to the downside. Rather, I would like to look at this as a diagonal for 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Now, it is completely possible within this count that we could actually see this take a bit more time, where this becomes ABC, and then we see another move to the downside. Now, the zone I really don't want to lose is the 661 level. This would be the 50% of this wave 3, and now this would mean, you know, if we start to break down past this level, we start to get close to this invalidation point. So, you know, a small wick through, it's fine, but I wouldn't like to see, you know, a continued break through this level. It would be more likely then we're going to actually look to invalidate this by crossing this point. Now, if we are looking at this as potentially 1, 2, what we could argue is that within this structure, it could actually be that this whole move is a wave 1, 2, this is another 1, 2, and then we're looking for a bigger third wave. Now, this wouldn't make a lot of sense if we look at these targets on the log scale. However, if I come back onto the linear scale here, what we can see is that if we're looking at this potentially as 1, 2, 1, 2, this would mean that actually our 1618 would be up here towards this zone of this 8146. Now this would be quite achievable in my opinion, where this could be 1, 2, we'd see 3, 4, and then we'd get a fifth wave to the upside, and then we'd get an additional fourth and a fifth. So this is something we're going to have to keep an eye on as well. I am looking at the other counts primarily, but this is something that is still technically possible for as long as we actually stay above this 8980 level. If this is the case, like I said, what I'd then be looking at would be that this is 1, 2, this is 1, 2, and then this would be 3, 4, 5, 4, and 5. So that would be a direct push to the upside, looking to continue that on. Now, if I come back here onto log, what I'd be looking for here is there is still potential that we could actually come down a bit deeper here, where this move could become A, B, and C. So we're going to go over these internals at the end. I want to just cover the main counts that I'm looking at here, and then we're going to go over these internal ideas here. Now, the other way that we could argue that this is playing out is where we would treat this as a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We would say that this is an A wave to the upside, in which case this could actually just be quite simply A, B, and then we're looking for a direct move up in a C wave here. So this would tie into that same idea with the fourth wave here, where we could still see a push down, but this 661 is going to be that key level. Now within this, the difference would be is that if we're looking at this as a corrective move, this is A, this is B, and C. The minimum requirement we'd be looking for this would actually be this 618 here at this 24,932 level. Now, if we do see a push up in this way, we can see here that our current level here would actually be this 14,000 to this 7,286, as with the other count. Now, the difference is, you know, I would ideally like to see this 0.618 get hit, but really, if we did take this A wave high here, we've already done this technically speaking, so it can fall short of this, but I'd like to see this for more confirmation that we have a truncation is actually hitting that 0.618 area and then looking for that rejection to the downside. If we just have this 5-wave move end over here, you know, it can still be that this could actually still be 1 and 2. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. Ideally, if this is the count here, where this is just a simple ABC pattern to the upside, what I'd like to see is this 24,932 get hit as a 0.618 of this as an A wave to the upside. So once again, the count here internally is going to be potentially the same. Some other targets here as a fifth wave would be this 11,101 as a 0.618 of the wave 1 to 3, as well as that we have the 0.382 here, which would be this 4,217. Now we can see that this lower target wouldn't actually look to cross the high again, so we need to be careful here. Even if we do get a 5-wave move to the upside, it's possible we could get a truncation in this, where this actually fails to break above this wave 3 zone, and we actually look to have another correction after that point, and then look for that additional fifth if we're looking at that that expanded one, or alternatively, you know, it could just look to complete and then look to break down from there. So we need to just keep an eye on that. We need to be aware there is always the potential of truncation within the wave, so we need to just keep an eye on that. Now, if we're going to argue that this is corrective to the upside, what we could also say is that, like I said earlier, we could say this is potentially ABC to the upside for a W, and we look at this as W, X, and Y. Now, I said earlier that this was not my primary way of looking at this corrective move here, but it is technically possible. I would have preferred it if this had hit that 0.618. So because of the fact it didn't, I'm very suspicious of this as a count, but it is a possibility. So now if this is the case, what we'd be arguing is that we've actually completed an A wave to the upside already. Now, if this is the case and we have completed this as an A wave up here, what we could actually see is that this could become A, B, and C, and what we'd be looking for would actually be a deeper retracement here. Now, the key thing within this is that this retracement would be substantially deeper than this 661 here, which would be that 50%. So if we do start to break this 50% level, what I would be keeping an eye on here would be the zones here of this 412 to this 211 zone. Now, this would actually tie in with some target boxes that we have, which we'll go over a little bit more once we come back into the smaller count here. But what I'm looking out for here is that possibility of a continuation to the downside. So once again with this, the invalidation would be at this 9107, which would be the bottom of this move over here. Crossing below that would make this less likely, would invalidate it, because we're looking for this as a 5-wave move up for an A. We'd be looking for a zigzag. Zigzags cannot cross the origin, so it would actually invalidate it. Another way that we could look at this, and this is probably my least favorite count, but still something I'm keeping an eye on. If we argue that this is an A wave to the upside here, what we could actually still be within is a bigger corrective structure here. Now, I prefer to count this move as an impulse to the upside here. On other exchanges, this wick is not as pronounced as it is on Kraken. And, you know, you could potentially argue that you have, this is ABC for a W, this is ABC for a Y, this as ABC for a Z. So you could argue that this is W, X, Y, X, and Z, but really, you know, it just looks like an impulse to me. But if this is the case, the reason why I'm looking at this possibility is we rejected off of this 1.382, which is this 4,786 level. Now, if this is the case, what we could then argue is that this could be A, this could be B, and then we're actually looking to set up for a bigger C wave. Now, if this is the case, invalidation would come by crossing back above this 4867 level, and what we'd be looking for here would effectively be a 5-wave move to the downside, where we treat this as A, B, and C as a flat. Now, if this is the case, we'd be looking for either this as 1, 2, 1, 2, or we'd be looking for the potential that this move is actually going to form a diagonal to the downside. So those two options would actually look something along this way, where we actually argue this is 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, the reason I don't like this as a count, though it is technically possible, is the fact that the secondary 1, 2 is bigger than the primary 1, 2 that we have here. So because of that fact, it is less likely that this is actually going to play out in the way that it is shown here. But if we did see a 5-wave move down towards this 219 level, then we'd have to be looking out for this count to actually confirm itself, where we'd then be arguing 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 into this point, in which case we'd be looking out for that potential of an additional 4th and a 5th wave, which could actually look to push us down as deep as this 132.91 to this $100 level. So we need to keep an eye on this until we invalidate this by crossing this 35.80. We need to be aware there is the potential that we could still see this continuation to the downside. Now, the typical rejection area as a wave 2 would actually be this 26.51 to this 17.75. So we've actually come up here into this golden pocket already. So we need to just be careful. If we do start to break down in a bigger way here, this would be looking for that possibility of a breakdown towards this 219 level for this wave 3. Another way we could look at this is that if we want to look at this slightly different, we could say that within here, I'm actually going to turn the speed fan off for a second. What we'd be looking at would be the possibility that actually we have this as ABC for 1, this is a wave 2, and then we're going to form some kind of a diagonal here. Now, the most common is the contracting variation. So what I'd be on the lookout for is that if we do start to break down in a 3-wave move and look to target out between this 766 level to this 517 level, what we could actually have is a 3-wave move down here for wave 3. Then we'd be looking for 4 and a 5th wave to the downside. So this would look to form a wedge pattern here, where we'd get a descending wedge like this. Now, if we did get something like this, what I would be looking for within this count is actually possibly to see this move complete probably closer towards this 618, which is sitting here at this 811, or alternatively, you know, possibly towards this 1-to-1. And this would mean that we would potentially have a running flat here. If we do see this extend out though, however, we need to be aware that the lower targets for this would be this 137 to this $45 area. So that would be if we're looking at this as an expanding flat. So like I said, you know, this is the least likely of the options in my opinion, but it is technically still possible. So we're going to have to keep an eye on it. So we're going to go over the internals of those other counts now, where we're looking at the possibility that within the structure, either we're completed or we've got an additional leg here. So we're going to go over those now. So looking at this move to the downside, I'm actually going to come here into the daily. What we can see is that we could argue that this is ABC down here for a W wave. We have this as an ABC up here for an X wave. Now, the time relationship between these two waves, if we're looking at it in this way, are quite good. So I would be looking for that potential that we could actually see this Y wave to the downside. So if we do start to break to the downside here, what we could actually see is another 3-wave move looking to push us down towards this 0.618 level, which would be the 752, and then that 1-to-1 would potentially bring us all the way down here towards this 394 level. Now, this would be an interesting zone for me if we did see a push down into that level, because we'd be looking to kind of move back into some of these previous structures that we have here, particularly this area here would be quite interesting to me. Now, it is also possible within this that the X wave could also be incomplete, in which case what we could see is something along these lines, where we actually treat this move as an ABC to the upside for an A wave. We get a bigger A, B, and a C to the downside here. Now, the target zone we'd be looking for as a typical B wave here would actually be this 1372 to this 1064. So technically speaking, even if we did get something like this as A, B, and C, and we broke down back into these levels, I would be keeping an eye on this 50% level as a retest of this low, as well as that if we did move down lower, we have the 786, which would be looking to retest some of these lows over here. So this would be interesting. Now, this would mean that we'd be looking for continuation. So invalidation of this actually comes by crossing this low point at this 880 level, and then what we'd be looking for if we actually stay above that invalidation level would be that possibility of a 3-wave move down followed by a C wave to the upside. Now, the current targets that I've been playing around with here would be the blue count here. We're treating this as ABC, looking at this as a completed move, looking for a B and then a C to the downside. So that could technically face rejection here between this 2019 to this 1868 level. So if we do see a bigger 3-wave move develop to the upside here, I'd be careful of the idea that we could see this still play to the downside here, looking to target out this lower level, or alternatively the yellow box area that we have over here. If we did come back down to this 618 level, what we'd actually be looking for would be a potential to push up towards this $3,005 area. Now, this would once again be an interesting level because pushing back into this would actually bring us back into the range of some of the structure here, and we could actually look to potentially test some of these different levels that we have here out before looking for that continuation to the downside. So this would actually be looking for a connector wave. So the idea with this is that this would be looking for our X wave within this count if it is not completed. Though, like I said as well, this is, it's got good equality between these waves. If this is a W, X, and a Y, this X wave is done enough that it could actually be completed. But sometimes we can see these drag out a little bit more than the W and the Y waves. So you're going to have to keep an eye on them and see how the waves form. Now, the other way that we could talk about this is that within this corrective structure here, we have ABC. Technically speaking, we could actually look to have a completed move here as a 4th wave. If this is the case, what we'd be looking for would be the potential to actually see a direct push to the upside. And what we'd be arguing here would be effectively that this move here is 1, 2, and then we'd be looking at a couple of different ways of counting this move here. Now, we could argue that this is 1, 2, this is 1, 2, and then we're looking for a bigger 3rd wave here, in which case our 1618 would be up here at this 38.34 from our current level. If we did have to push down deeper here, what we have is a support box where we could look to find support between this zone here of this 382 and this 786. We found temporary support on this 236 here. So what I want to see is if this is completed, we could technically have a very shallow wave here, in which case it would be a more sideways move as ABC for a W, X, and a Y. So that could be a possibility within this count. We need to just be aware of that. If we do look to complete here, then our target area for wave 3 would actually be this 38.34 level, in which case we'd be looking for a 4th and a 5th, and this would look to push us up directly. Now, if we only hit the targets as I have them shown here, this would mean that we'd be looking to actually just complete this towards this 5,700 to this 4,677. Though what we can get within waves is there can be extensions. So even within this structure here, we're going to go over it now, there is the possibility of an extension. So this could be looking for that direct push to the upside. Now, the other way that we could look at this is that if we are looking at this move slightly different, what we could argue is that within this count here, instead of counting it the way that I was there, we could actually have this as 1, 2. This could actually be a 1, 2, and we could have another 1 and a 2 here. So if this is the case, what this would mean is that we'd be looking at this as 1, 2, and then we would have already come down to this zone here of this 1654 to this 1462. Invalidation of this count would actually come by crossing this low. So the key difference within here is we'd be breaking up this move slightly different, treating this as a wave 1 with a complex correction here, and then we'd be looking for this 2639 as a wave 3. Now, the thing within this is effectively what we'd want to see is nice strong price movement to the upside with volume increasing. We'd want to see this develop in a nice clean 5-wave move up here towards this 22,639, and then we'd see a 4th and a 5th, which could look to push us between this 22,953 to this 2,005 2,753 level. If we did get that, then we'd have to be on the lookout for the additional fourths and fifths playing out here. What we'd want to see here, though, if we're looking at this in this way, where this is an additional 1, 2, is actually a move past this 3,009 level. If we did move past to that, then we would be looking for that potential of an additional fourth and a fifth. We would be looking for a target area of this 3,635 to this 3,237 zone. Now, the key thing here is that if we're looking at this as 1, 2, this would mean that we wouldn't actually hit this 1618. Now, this could technically look to extend somewhere within here where we actually do hit this target. Alternatively, we might just fall short of this, but still develop the fourth and fifth. So that would be still looking to actually push us up here towards this 5759 to this 4720. The key difference within this is within this count, this would potentially mean we could actually see some extension within the blue count here, where we start to see something more aggressive to the upside, and perhaps instead of hitting this 1618, which is sitting here at this 2,639, what we might see rather is a 2618 getting hit towards this 3555 area. So we're going to have to keep an eye on this. As long as we actually hold this 1370 level, this is a valid count, and we need to be just aware of that possibility of a direct break to the upside from where we currently are. That being said, though, you know, we need to get the evidence. We have it a bounce, but it's not really done enough now that we can say that it's potentially completed. I want to see a break back above these highs and actually looking for some of these higher targets, looking to break out of this zone. Okay, so I'm going to leave the video there. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please smash the like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, turn on those bell notifications so you never miss a video, and leave us some feedback down below. Also in the description, you'll find a link to Discord. Come check it out. It's free to join. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.